What if your greatest strength became the very thing that destroyed you? What if the gift that made you special also made you blind? This is not just a story from ancient times. It's a mirror, one many of us are afraid to look into. Because deep down we know, the fall of Samson is still happening today. Samson was chosen, a miracle child, a man set apart before he was even born. He had strength no man could rival, tearing lions apart, defeating armies single-handedly, lifting gates of cities. But despite all that power, he was vulnerable, not in his muscles but in his heart. And in this story you'll discover something sobering, that a man can be anointed and still fall, that you can be called by God and still be blinded by desire. That strength without surrender is a slow walk to self-destruction. Today many people, men and women alike, are living out Samson's tragedy in real time. Talent without character, power without wisdom, vision without obedience. This isn't just the fall of one man, it's a warning for a generation. So lean in because this story will shock you, stir you, and hopefully awaken you. Now, let's go back to the beginning, to the miracle birth of a boy destined for greatness, and seduced by his own shadow. The Israelites were in trouble again. For 40 long years, they lived under the crushing weight of Philistine oppression. They cried, they hid, they fought back and lost. Over and over, their strength had failed, their courage faded, and hope nearly gone. But just when things looked darkest, God whispered a promise to a barren woman. In Judges 13, an angel of the Lord appeared to her, a mysterious figure glowing with glory. He spoke not just of a child but of destiny. You will conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall touch his head. For the child shall be a Nazirite, set apart to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Judges 13 verse 5. Samson wasn't born by accident. He was born by assignment. From day one, Samson's life had divine fingerprints on it. His birth was a miracle. His calling was clear. His parents raised him according to God's instruction. No wine, no uncleanness, no cutting his hair. He was dedicated to the Lord. And when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, Samson began to stir. He wasn't just strong, he was unstoppable. But here's the first warning we must not miss. Calling doesn't guarantee character. Samson was chosen, yes, but he was also impulsive, reckless, undisciplined. He had the Spirit of God, but not the self-control to match it. And that would be his downfall. Because what do you do when God gives you strength, but you use it to chase your weakness? Samson grew into a man of unmatched strength. He could tear apart a lion with his bare hands, and yet, he couldn't control his desires. What if your greatest enemy wasn't outside you, but inside your own heart? In Judges 14, we find Samson walking through Timnah, a Philistine city. There he sees a woman. She's not from his tribe. She doesn't worship his God, but he's instantly obsessed. He runs home and demands from his parents, "I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore, get her for me as a wife." Judges 14 verse 2. His parents plead with him, "Can't you find a wife from among God's people?" But Samson doesn't care. He's ruled by what he sees, not what he believes. And that's the danger. How many destinies have been destroyed because of what someone saw? It's not long before the consequences begin to unravel. At the wedding feast, riddles are exchanged. Tensions rise. Betrayal ensues. And Samson, humiliated and enraged, slaughters 30 men just to pay off a bet. This isn't love. It's lust. This isn't wisdom. It's wrath. And soon after, that marriage collapses too. His wife is given to another man. But Samson isn't done. His emotions burn hotter than ever. He captures 300 foxes, ties their tails together with torches, and burns the Philistines' fields. Destruction follows him. Death surrounds him. He was meant to deliver Israel, but now he's driven by revenge. What happens when God's anointed stops fighting for purpose and starts fighting for pride? The trap was set. Night after night, she pressed him for the secret to his strength. "Tell me, Samson, where does your strength come from?" And he'd lie. "If you bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, if you use new ropes, if you weave the 7 locks of my hair." Each time the Philistines rushed in, and Samson broke free. But Delilah didn't quit. She used the deadliest weapon, guilt and emotional pressure. "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me?" Judges 16 verse 15. And finally Samson broke. He revealed the truth. "A razor has never come upon my head. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me." He slept on her lap, unaware that his destiny was slipping away strand by strand. And then she shaved his hair. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He rose, but something was different. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. Judges 16 verse 20. That verse sends chills. He didn't even know God had left. What happens when we become so numb that we don't realize God's voice is silent? What happens when the strongest man in Israel becomes the weakest in the hands of his enemies? The moment Delilah's trap succeeded, everything unraveled. The Philistines stormed in. This time, Samson didn't break free. He reached for the strength that once surged through his veins and found nothing. They seized him like a wounded animal. They didn't just bind him. Then the Philistines took him and put out his eyes. Judges 16 verse 21. The man who once saw danger before it struck was now blind. The man who once carried city gates on his shoulders was now led like a prisoner. And the one who judged Israel for 20 years was now grinding grain in the enemy's prison. Why the eyes? Because Samson's downfall began with what he saw. He saw a Philistine woman and wanted her. He saw Delilah and desired her. He lived by sight and not by faith. Now those eyes were gone. When we play with sin, we may think we're in control. But sin always takes more than we plan to give. It blinds, it binds, grinds. Samson was now a shadow of himself. And the Philistines celebrated, not just because they captured a man, but because they believed they had defeated his God. In the temple of Dagon, they threw a party. They brought Samson out for sport, mocking him, laughing at him. The once mighty deliverer of Israel was now entertainment for his enemies. But they didn't realize something. However, the hair of his head began to grow again. Judges 16 verse 22. Could it be that even in our darkest moments, God is still writing redemption? What if your greatest victory came after your deepest failure? The temple of Dagon was packed. Lords, rulers, and thousands of Philistine citizens. They were drunk with laughter and arrogance. To them, Samson was nothing more than a blind fool, a clown brought out to amuse. But something was stirring beneath the surface. As Samson stood between the two pillars that supported the entire structure, he whispered, not a shout, not a scream, but a broken prayer. "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes." Judges 16 verse 28. This wasn't the Samson of old. This was a humbled man. A man who finally realized his strength came from above, not within. With his hands on the pillars, he cried out one last time. And then he pushed. And he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. Judges 16 verse 30. The entire building shook. Screams filled the air. Dust and stone collapsed in a deafening roar. In his death, Samson killed more Philistines than he had during his entire life. A man who fell, found redemption not in avoiding consequences, but in turning back to God, even at the end. Samson's story is a mirror. Many of us have gifts, strengths, platforms, influence. But when we live disconnected from God, those gifts can lead us astray. Still, even after sin, failure, shame, God can still write redemption. Maybe you've been blinded by a poor decision. Maybe you've been bound by a secret sin. Maybe you feel like your strength is gone. Hear this, it's not over. If God could use Samson's final breath, He can use your next one. What if the greatest chapter of your life hasn't even been written yet? What if, like Samson, your fall isn't the end, but the beginning of redemption? If this story moved you, if you see yourself in Samson's rise, fall, or redemption, don't scroll away. Subscribe to the Euaggelion for more stories that speak to your soul. Like this video to help others find this message. And in the comments, tell us, what part of Samson's journey resonated with you most? Because your story matters too, and someone out there needs to hear it.